Research is becoming the future of farming in Zimbabwe. Welcome to the premiere episode of agriculture.co.zw. I am your host, Tanya Zoshe.
Nice to be with you. We're joined in studio today by Hugh Winkfield. He is the head of research at Artfarm. Hugo, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, nice
Good
to
to be
have
here.
you here as we explore all things Artfarm. And I think a lot of people, especially Harare people, understand that Artfarm is there, but maybe not totally understanding what it's all about. So today we have Hugo in studio and maybe learning a little bit of what is that? What does the research entail? But nice to have you here.
Thanks. Yeah.
So, Hugo, can you please let us in on the core mission of Artfarm and how it has evolved over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you say, quite rightly, Duck, it's something that a lot of people in Harare know about, a lot of farmers know about, sometimes perhaps of the older generation. Some people just know it for walking their dogs. But Art was actually originally established in 1980. So it's been running for a really long time now, and it was originally set up by various commodity associations of Zimbabwe that were all part of the Commercial Farmers Union to establish a center of research and learning that is designed by farmers for farmers. And ever since then, that is exactly what it's done. That's its core mandate. We're not a profit-making organization. It's been entirely funded by the farmers of Zimbabwe. And in the sort of late 90s, it was decided that art should actually be self-funded. And so our model is pretty unique in Africa in that we are entirely self-supporting. We've got a 600 hectares of land. It has a commercial farm, and we have various research partners that support us in doing our own independent research. So through their support and through the profits of the commercial farm, we can put that money into research for Zimbabwean farmers. And the way that we're structured as well is that our board is designed such that they are all Zimbabwean farmers on the board, and they dictate the research agenda. So every now and again we go out to various, we speak to the farmers and we say, hey, what would you like researched? What would you like done? What is necessary for you? Because in a lot of research institutions around the world, there's such a big separation between...
Is that, I'm going to stop you.
Yeah.
Is that dangerous though? So as we,
Yeah.
I mean, if you talk modern technology and you talk AI on how quickly the world is moving, should Artfarm be asking farmers? Because I think there's also an element where
Yeah.
some farmers have just done what they've done for many years.
Yeah.
And the perception is that it's successful. Should Artfarm, and I tell this tongue in cheek, and in all due respect, should Artfarm be more assertive in going, this is what you should be doing. This is
Yeah.
the research we're going to do. This is what I'm showing you, and you guys are doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So
No.
are you just being polite, or is that what you do?
It's a really good question, actually. It's a really good question. And I think why I say this is because typically a lot of the focus has been recently on the scientists have been pushing the research. They've been assertive. And a lot of pushback has come from farmers saying, this isn't what we want to see. This isn't helpful to us.
Yeah.
But at the end, with everything, it's a balance. And so that's why we have to be a bit selective about what research we do. We're not just going to listen to everyone and just take that and not put our own opinion in at all. And that's why there is definitely a balance that you have to strike. Without that, otherwise, farming wouldn't necessarily evolve in the direction that it might need to go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of it is from different perspectives. Farmers aren't necessarily going to be thinking about sustainability and environmental
correct.
problems.
Yeah.
So we have to put our element of that in. And I think it's about finding win-win situations.
I suppose also the other problem, Tanya, it's not only farmers. People are against change.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when someone comes and tells me, I'm 60 years old, and I've been doing this for 40 years on my farm, and Hugo walks in and says, I think you should be doing this, I think the hardest job that you have at Artfarm is actually convincing people that change is important. I mean, I still have an element of a farming background, and spraying now with drones and new technology and tractors that some places in the world don't need drivers. When telling a 60, 70-year-old farmer in Zimbabwe that this is what you should be changing. So I can imagine that that's quite a hard task when you're telling me after 40 years of farming that I'm doing it wrong.
It is, especially when there's someone young coming along and telling them that it's supposed to be done differently, and I've got a quarter of the experience that the farmers have got. And that's where you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. So there's benefits that the guys with experience have. There's benefits that the younger generation coming up, they've got the passion, the energy, the experience with new technology. We don't want to be convincing people to do something that they really don't want to do. If they don't want to do it, then there's no point.
Yeah.
And so it's about finding the middle ground between something that a farmer is willing to take a risk on, because farmers have it tough in general, really. And if we come along and we say, we've got our mindset is very much based on agronomy, and we say this is going to improve your system this way, and you should stop growing wheat and start growing cover crops, for example, they're going to say, but that's a big risk to my business, a massive risk to my business. So although the research might show that it's good, can I afford to take that risk? Even though the change may be good for me, it still may go wrong. Every single farm is different. So it's about finding a balance of things that's going to be good for the farmer, and it's something that a farmer is willing to take on in a slightly smaller incremental change.
Are you pushing the agenda that far, though? So when you say you're not telling a farmer that he should stop growing wheat and he should grow this, that's quite rogue. As opposed to going, why don't you try this chemical on there? Yeah. It's a risk, but it's not really a risk. Yeah. Is that how far you're pushing it out from?
So that's absolutely it is. Yeah. So we've done trials recently where we've done what we call cropping system trials. So we don't just look at where can we improve efficiencies of our current system. What if we just changed the system? What if we redesigned it into something completely new, rather than growing maize, soya, wheat, tobacco? What about growing a cover crop for taking half your crops out and growing a cover crop in half of those land? How does that change the economy, the economics of the farming system? How does it change the soil health? How does it change all these drastic factors? And things like that, we hear this word transformational being bandied about a lot. And that is what really is transformational. And it's something that a lot of farming systems, all around the world need. You can increase efficiencies of this, you can try a chemical here, you can try a chemical there, but it gets to the point at some stage, and for some farms, where they go, I've got to redesign this whole thing. And I've got to completely relook at the way that I'm doing farming, as opposed to adjusting the efficiencies. Yeah.
You talked about listening to the farmers, hearing what they want to change, their concerns and stuff like that. Can you please let us know what has been the farmers' concern this season?
Yeah, okay. So the biggest farmers' concern has been economic viability of row cropping. There's no doubt about it. All of the talk at the moment, particularly with wheat coming up, particularly with the conflict in the Middle East, fertilizer prices going up, chemical prices going up, people are scratching their heads and thinking, is it going to be viable for me to even grow wheat anymore? The margins are so tight. So
electricity problems.
Electricity goes up, water is becoming scarce, groundwater is dropping. Previous couple of years, I know this year has been good for most areas of Zimbabwe, but previous bad years of drought, dam levels are low. There is just an absolutely humongous list of things that are kind of culminating in this thing, which is saying, we really need to relook at what we're doing here. How can we diversify? So those are the questions that farmers want answering. Are there opportunities to reduce down our inputs and not pay so much? Because there are options in biological farming, soil health, where we've done some really interesting research where by doing things like growing cover crops, by redesigning your system, you can reduce down a lot of your fertilizer that you're applying. Use what's in the soil, cycle what's in the soil, and unlock previous fertilizer. For example, phosphorus, is one of the major nutrients that we're putting down in the soil. And if you're putting that in, probably it's about 30% of that phosphorus is actually going to be used. The rest of it is going to be locked up. Yeah. It's wasted. It's so inefficient.
So you say that as well. Had a friend who left for Zambia to farm there, tobacco farmer. Did all his tobacco here under irrigation. Yeah. Got to Zambia, got to a stage of almost not going farming there because he didn't have irrigation. And in the space of just a year, realized how he was spoiled for water in Zimbabwe and how he was actually wasting it because the tobacco plant didn't need that amount of water. But the minute he saw an element of wilt, he'd water it in Zimbabwe. In Zambia, he sat and he waited for the rain. And said for the next 3 years, actually had the best tobacco crops he ever had because he didn't need to overwater because he was spoilt. So in the same way, have we been spoilt because, a simple example at the moment, fuel price has doubled, okay, even more than doubled. So in the old days, it was like, Hugo, here are the tractor keys, just quickly take that and take it over there. Now you're in a position of going, you don't need to do that anymore. You don't need to take the tractor to go and move that. We'll move that later. That's just a small example. But it's amazing how those kind of things will then become part of that cropping decision or the farming decision because we've been spoilt in our decision making. Because when I over-fertilize and it just leaches out or the rain comes and it doesn't matter, I just put some more. Now all of a sudden, the fertilizer might actually not be available. So you have to think a little bit harder on when you decide to put that fertilizer on. How does that though? Because you're asking Hugo now, if that's the question that the farmers are asking about, is row cropping viable? You don't have a magic wand or a crystal ball because the Middle East crisis is not something that we can foresee. It's not something we can control. What are you now telling farmers that are going, are row crops viable? Because I'm sitting and going, well, I don't know. Because let's see what happens with the fuel price. Let's see when the fertilizer arrives. What are you telling people?
I think we know that a lot of it is beyond our control. The prices of the standard inputs that are used. The best that we can do is try to substitute those inputs for other things and give advice to farmers of alternative methods. We haven't got there yet. We will never get there. That's research. It's a continuous flow of trying to improve systems and trying to adapt to the context that's provided us by the rest of the world. And so the best thing that we can do, I would say, is just give advice to farmers to be adaptable, to try new things. Because a lot of the research that's happening, it can't all be done on research stations. It can't all be done by Art Farm. A lot of it's got to be done by farmers. So if farmers are, like you said at the beginning, if farmers are willing to be adaptable, if they're willing to try new things and test new products and say, this year, I'm not growing wheat. I don't have enough water. I'm going to grow a cover crop instead, and I'm going to see what happens. That is the best research that anyone can do, because then someone else is going to look over their fence and say, oh, that worked quite well this year. That is the best way that it adapts, and it's going to happen naturally. It's going to happen naturally with how the farmers do it. And we basically there just to support it. So, yeah, that's the advice I'd give to farmers. Stay adaptable.
So can you tell us, what's that one piece of research or trial result that you feel commercial farmers are overlooking, but they should consider right now?
Yeah, okay. So I would take it back to this research that I said about wheat and growing cover crops. So back in 2022, we did a trial where we didn't grow wheat, and instead we obviously have a mixed farm system. So we have cattle grown for beef, and we also do obviously row crops. And so the option that we're given is you can use your winter season to grow wheat, you can use it to grow fodder for your cattle. Now normally in winter, beef cattle are going to be used to, they're going to be maintained. You're going to buy some feed for them, you're going to need to buy some licks, some extra nutritional supplements for them. Instead of spending all that money maintaining your cattle's weight, which is just maintaining it, it's just a cost through winter. Instead, if you're growing a cover crop, you can feed your cattle, we found this, that you can feed your cattle for the same cost as maintaining them through winter in a conventional way. Yet at the same time, you're also growing a cover crop. You haven't got the risk of growing wheat. You're not at the wrath of the fertilizer prices, the chemical prices, water running out, all sorts of situations, changes, not having any electricity. You're just growing fodder. You're growing protein for your cattle. It doesn't need nearly so much water, doesn't need any fertilizer. And at the end of the day, you're putting roots into the soil. you're keeping it green throughout the season, you're adding huge amount of diversity to your farm, and so all of those things are going to be really beneficial for your soil health.
But
Yeah.
does that not now affect cash flows? So I'm sitting as a farmer, and I'm like, okay, if I do row crops summer, or let's just say I'm a tobacco farmer, right? Which I know is not your expertise at Art Farm, but I'm looking at something that's going to generate me income all year round. I know that it's a bit short-sighted because even though I'm not making money potentially in winter from my cattle, I'm growing them, I'm maintaining them, I'm fattening them. So in theory I am. So now I'm asking you, is the pushback going to come from the farmer? Because he's like, well, what do I do for cash flow in winter? You've also got Rory Locke at Lazino now going, hang on, now I can't sell my sprayers anymore because you're stopping people growing crops. You just want them to grow fodder. So is that now the challenge that you face on that convincing of the farmer?
100%.
Because what do I do for 6 months for cash flow?
So both on the cash flow front and on the food security front, it becomes a question. It's sort of saying, okay, we're now telling people not to grow wheat, and it's the opposite of what is being pushed in this country. So I'll start with the cash flow thing. Cash flow is you are going to sell your you're going to put all your money into the wheat at the start of the season. That you're not going to have at the start of the season. You're not going to have the burden at the start. You're not going to have the burden of having to pay the electricity bill every month through that season at nearly quite the same rate. You'll still have to buy seed. You'll still have to put a little bit of water on, but it's not nearly the same amount. And secondly, when it gets to the end of the season, wheat cash flow, if it's paid on time, that's a big if. That's a really big if.
If the prices are right.
If the prices are right, if it's paid on time.
If the yields were good.
Exactly. It'll pay you in October, let's say. That sort of season. If you've got cattle, you only have to wait another month. And if you've grown a lot of cover crop, you can actually gain weight through the winter. If you've got a breeding herd, your cows are going to be cycling sooner.
Could you also sell the cover crop?
You could potentially bale it. You could potentially do a grazing fee.
That's what we did here. We baled our, not very good baling, but we tried. Don't judge us, please.
So the cash is still coming in because actually you can actually sell much ahead of the rest of the cattle market, because typically, the guys will be selling more often towards the end of the summer season after the cattle have put on some weight during summer. But if you're grazing during winter, you've got green, they're going to hit that green grass when the rains come a lot sooner, and you're going to be able to actually speed up your
so it's
cycling.
It's a bit like the guy who might be doing FMCG products, so like a tomato or an onion. I don't want to really hit the market when it's flooded, because the price is going to be poor. How do I position that at the right time,
exactly,
that I'm going to get best price because no one else has got it? Is that what you're advocating as well?
That's what I'm saying.
Your cows are now fatter than everyone else's.
Yes.
He ain't going to sell them because he ain't going to get any money for it. You're now sitting in the pound seats.
With fat cows. Okay,
so have you sold this? Are you convinced?
Well, I'm buying this one.
Are you?
Yes, I am.
So have you convinced farmers?
Well, we've convinced a few farmers at the moment. We're doing it ourselves at the moment as well, and it's working well for us.
So what is that cover crop called? What are you?
So we're just calling it a multi-species cover crop. We're growing winter cereals, and it's a mixture of legumes, cereals, brassicas. So we've got ryegrass, we've got barley, we've got vetch, we've got some forage peas. We want to get a mixture of probably about 7 different species.
What about grasses like lucerne and all that stuff? Does it?
It's a perennial. Okay. So this is just an annual crop. This is something that you grow up and it graze down, and then the summer season comes, you're planting a soy crop or a tobacco crop or something else into that.
One thing we haven't mentioned on this idea, because I'm actually thinking of stopping wheat farming now. One thing we haven't discussed with all these, which I'd like to think with your brain, is that what you're growing in the winter, what benefit are you giving my soil for my summer crops? Are you?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Because I think what a lot of people think is if you're grazing it, then you're not going to be giving any benefit to the soil.
But you are.
But there's the other half of the plant.
Yeah.
All of those roots and the diversity there.
Yeah.
That comes up time and time and time again. If you've got diversity, we don't necessarily at the moment know what it's doing. We know it's good for the soil. We know it's good for the biology. We haven't worked out why yet. There's a whole lot going on in soil. You take a teaspoon of soil and there's 1 billion microorganisms in a teaspoon of soil, 1 billion. And they are so many different types, and they are all doing different things. They've all got different roles. They can all adapt and change. It's a complex world underneath there. And one thing that we're learning bit by bit is that you've got diversity of plants that will attract diversity of microbes under your soil, which will make your soil more resilient, and it will release nutrients that have been previously locked up. It'll cycle nitrogen better. It'll cycle phosphorus better. We talked about a lot of that being locked up as well. And we've noticed it on our farm. We get our best crops, our best, most healthy crops that have come after cover crops. They've come after a multi-species mix.
What are you working on next?
Good question.
Because I guess that this is, it would be ongoing, but you can't rest on that idea. It's now moving into, someone's working on that. We've sold the concept, and we will continuously show that this is the right way to go, even though you might have someone knocking on your door going, why are you telling people to stop growing wheat? Because that's a challenge, because now food security becomes a problem. What's the next thing you're working on?
So, as I mentioned before, a lot of farmers are they're very skeptical about changing the system so entirely.
Yeah.
And so we've got to come up with solutions which are a little bit more incremental. Doesn't involve stop growing wheat, grow this instead. It involves something like, instead of using a chemical, how about using biological? Keep the same crop rotation, keep the tillage practices, keep all your same practices, but just change your spray regime. So we're starting to look now, because there's a lot of good research that's sort of started in Europe and the US. It's sort of making its way into the international sphere, that is looking at the ability to reduce fertilizer down by using some kind of brood or some kind of off-the-shelf packet of microorganisms that you're applying. So instead of using the crop, instead of using the plants, that's first prize, to boost the health of your soil. Second prize is, you can actually inoculate your soil with microorganisms that you want in order to boost the health of your soil, so that you don't have to put so much in, letting nature do a little bit more of the work.
Okay. So that would be sort of moving into more natural uses as opposed to chemicals that we're currently using.
In combination, I'd say.
Yeah.
You keep using your chemicals, but now we're looking at nutrition.
So like weaning.
Yeah. But not even necessarily weaning off chemicals. That we're always going to have to use chemicals to an extent. I would be silly to say, obviously there is organic farming and that operates very well, but the majority of the world's market requires at the moment chemicals within it in order to operate. And so this is more about trying to reduce down, especially your fertilizer, trying to think about the nutrition using your biologicals. With that comes a little bit of health in the plant and a little bit less requirement for chemicals. But the main goal is not putting as much fertilizer on, reducing that cost down, because the cost of fertilizer, the cost of nitrogen is just so much at the moment that is the key target.
So if I'm a farmer, right, and I read, so I'm reading about new technologies, and I'm reading about going away from fertilizer. I have Art Farm running and doing their research and whatever. How do I get that information? I'm just a farmer. How do I get to be the one that Hugo comes to me and goes, stop growing wheat, you need to be doing this? Is there an association? Is there a newsletter? Does Hugo just get in his car and go and bang on a farmer's door and goes, hey, I think you should try this? How does that information get disseminated? And how does the interaction work with the farmers?
I wish I could go and bang on everyone's door. It'd be fantastic. But what we do is we put all of our information on our website. We used to have an annual report. It was a magazine that we published winter. It was not an annual report. It was actually a seasonal report. So we published a winter report and we published a summer report. And that contained all of the information of a complete summary of all of our trials that we'd done over that season. And farmers would pick that up and read it, and it's a physical thing. Nowadays, obviously, with technology that we've got, we put it all online.
Okay.
We have to do things to a certain standard as well. So, academic standards, we're also sort of thinking about that. So often we've got a sort of 9-page document, which is no farmer's ever going to read a PDF and read it and click on the website.
You can't even read the instructions on the back of a chemical tin. Now you want to read a 9-page document.
Yeah. So what we're also trying to do is we're also creating little posters that basically just summarize what our research is. And they're just got in one thing. You can open up your WhatsApp and you can have a look and you say, oh, this is the results at Art Farm. This is what they did. Here's a number you can call. Come and have a visit. We've got a complete open door policy. So any farmer that calls us up and wants to say, hi, I want to come and see, I want to come and chat to you, I want to come and see what you're doing, see your results. Anytime, that's what we're here for. So that's.
I know we're talking farming, but I put it out there.
Yeah.
Studio, little podcast.
Yeah.
Share them with the farmers.
Absolutely. Very, very possible.
Yeah, what do you reckon, Tanya?
Yeah, it's really working.
Yeah.
No, definitely. We're very keen for that. And there's so many people out there that are so passionate about it and have got so much to say.
Where does... I asked you before the show about Kutsaga and their involvement in tobacco. What about now Art Farm educating people? So we have the farmer, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I'm a farmer. I know we had in the old days, what were the farm educations? There was Gweeby College.
Yeah, okay.
Does art have anything like that where they educate people or they allow people to come and learn?
Yeah.
As opposed to just giving a lot of information like you do to farmers, what we've discussed today.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, I think our biggest thing is our attachments.
Yeah.
We don't do any formal education. We will do education, a bit of education of field days and things like that. But our biggest thing, and I continually hear this, you'll meet people in the industry even today, and they'll come up to you and they say, oh, you work at Art Farm? Really? I did my attachment at Art Farm.
Dude.
And they're now working at Seedco, and they're in the agronomy department, or they are a lot of people, and there's a lot of value in real work experience on a real research farm that does things to a high standard. And so that's where I think our value can lie. How else does it get out there? Yeah, it's we obviously have a lot of field days and we do education there.
Yeah.
We have to be very, very aware of the market and the people that we're educating, because there's obviously such a range of farmers in Zimbabwe. We particularly for the commercial farmers, we find that we can, for the commercial larger scale guys, a lot of them are sort of saying, well, actually, we need a bit more cutting edge stuff here.
Yeah.
Because they can go on YouTube and look up research from the US and Europe, and they can look up about all sorts of things. And so they're looking at things like big pieces of machinery and
drones, and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And that's something that we'd like to get into a little bit more. But something that we are good at the moment is selection of the right variety, good agricultural practice. And so something that we've been attracting and we've been working a lot with is more on the smallholder side of things. We used to be kind of only commercial ag, but we'd like to, and we're sort of developing sort of trials a little bit more in line with 90% of Zimbabwe's farmers, which are smallholders. And a lot of research has actually forgotten about that. A lot of research is still focused on being at the cutting edge, but now we've got almost new scenarios where there's some very, very resource limited farmers out there. What are the optimal ways to use those resources so that we can produce the best out of what we can?
And I suppose never going away from farming 101.
Yeah.
In the sense that you can be as fancy as you want. You can use the most modern technology, but no different to a Formula One driver. The fundamentals of driving the car will never change.
Yes.
100%.
So you find that some companies, and I guess we all fall into that trap, because we want to be more modern and we want to be more cutting edge and we want to be, but then, like you said, you remove 90% of the population. But even the guy who is cutting edge, he can never go away from the fundamentals of what I put in the soil is what I'm going to get out. Doesn't matter what technology you've got.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's a key learning, because we all fall into that trap of, check, this is something new. Let's run with this.
Yeah.
And you go away from what your core actually is.
Even the commercial guys will say to me, art should do the core basics, good agricultural practice. What is your population? How many plants are you putting in per hectare? How are you fertilizing? Is it better to put more fertilizer and save it for next season? These very basic questions. The research, of course, it's been done before.
Yeah.
It's been done many, many years, but you're not going to even, farmers aren't going to look back into the archives and see from years ago the research was done somewhere else in the country or somewhere else in the world about what's going on with fertilizer and what is the optimum price when so many things are different now. So we've got to keep on top of doing our basic research, and it's almost as if we need a sort of standard trial that is demonstrating every single year. We do it with varieties. Every single year we will demonstrate the varieties, and in 15 different sites around the country. And there is still so much interest in those varieties, yet there's a lot of the varieties are not new.
Yeah.
A lot of the varieties there's not a massive innovation in the varieties at the moment in Zimbabwe, but still, because it's such a core part of farming, farmers are going to keep coming back to it, and it's so easy to forget. Yeah.
In sort of closing, you've got ADMA coming up.
Yes, we
That's
have.
soon. Great event in Zimbabwe. What role does ADMA play in that? I mean, sorry, does art play in that?
Yeah. So
Apart from hosting, obviously.
Yeah. So at the moment we play mostly a hosting role, but in the future ADMA's been going for a while. It's at Art Farm. It's been going around for about 3 years now. This will be its third year at Art, I believe. And we would like to develop ADMA a little bit to take it outside the boundaries of a stand and a tent and some products on display. We'd like to take it a little bit more into how we see other agricultural shows, demonstrations of equipment.
Having said that, do you know back in the, way before you two were born,
Yeah.
60s, 70s, they used to do the international ploughing competition.
Yeah.
Did you know about that?
No,
And
that's new.
Zimbabwe won it.
Wow.
I can't tell you exactly what year it was. I want to say maybe 70s.
Is it a guy called Dave England?
It might have been,
Yeah.
And those used to be part of those, sorry to cut you short of your involvement, but people used to come from all over the world and get on a tractor and plough, and there would be a champion. So, maybe you can reintroduce that, Hugo. Come on, why don't you
absolutely.
pioneer
Why don't we
the
do a
ploughing competition?
100%.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Ploughing competition. There can be all sorts of things. I mean, that we do. I mean, we've got the livestock now at ADMA, which is a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
But then we can expand that into pigs and goats and sheep, and there's so much potential with the ADMA Agri Show because it's already attracting.
It's big.
Industry. It's
Yeah.
big.
Yes.
There's over 10,000 people come through those gates over 3 days.
Sure.
It's really a big operation. So to make sure that people are getting involved with what is actually happening on the ground, with farming happening on the ground, rather than simply just it's fantastic and it's great. But we definitely would like to expand that model in the future. Yeah.
Art Farm, Hugo Wingfield, great to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to ADMA in a couple of weeks, months' time. We'll be there as well, so we'll be catching some of the action, and we'll catch up with Hugo, I'm sure. Well done for everything that Art Farm is doing. I think sometimes you get into the research side, and for some people it's a little bit boring. But what an interesting take on what you guys are doing, and we look forward to speaking to you again. We'll take a break, and when we come back, Rory Locke from Lazino, we're going to be talking spraying and everything to do with agriculture. Don't go away.
Welcome back. That was a great catch up with Hugo Wingfield. Dirk, what do you think?
Yeah, it was great. I've known of Art Farm for a long time. It's nice to get a bit of insight. I think sometimes you think about it and you're like, it's just research. How boring is that? But great to hear from Hugo. And I think one thing that helps him is you listen to his enthusiasm. It sort of really means something to him, and that's important. So Hugo from Art Farm, head of research there, and as we talk research, part of today's show, as we joined in studio by Rory Locke from Lazino, is now crop protection and mainly on spraying. Rory, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Dirk. Thanks.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Nice to have you here, and you were able to listen to the interview with Hugo, and no doubt that in what Lazino does. Where's Lazino from, actually?
So Lazino was started in around 2012. We do agricultural equipment. We started with just Jacto spraying equipment, and it's grown from there. And we're actually based at Art Farm now, so I do see Hugo a fair bit.
Do you? So when we say spraying, has Lezino sort of, we know the Jacto, and would Jacto sort of be in line with the Rolls Royce of spraying equipment?
Yes, you can call it that. I mean, they've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
They were here pre-80s, and so they're well known in Zimbabwe. But it's a good product. It's yeah.
So when we talk about Jacto, and you say now other equipment, where has Lezino sort of branched into?
So we started with Jacto with the spraying side, and there was demand to grow into the planting, the land prep, threshing, your hay bales, your haymaking stuff. And it's sort of grown into that. We sort of have 4 or 5 main brands, which cover the land prep, the spraying, the planting, and the threshing side of farming.
We talked to Hugo about the importance of learning new techniques. I think what was probably more important was also the reminder of Farming 101.
Yes.
From a Lezino perspective, would you still say that key for you is being the authority on the spraying side, or are you more diverse now? Would spraying be where you focus most of your attention?
Look, spraying was where we started. There's so much education needed on spraying, on the safety, on the application, and it's a lost art where guys need to learn more, and you need to be continually learning on spraying. So we find on the technical side, that's where we are needed a lot. On the land prep, on the planting, yes, there's technical questions, but it's not as in-depth or as complicated as spraying tends to be.
And that sort of spraying, I mean, if I drive down to the hardware, I can buy myself a knapsack.
Yes.
Now, people that are in the farming community, or spraying when we talk Jacto, would go, no. There's Jacto, and then there's spraying equipment. What sort of differentiates Lezino's product from a spraying, if we're talking knapsacks, from what I would just buy in the hardware?
So Jacto are there for the long run. They supply a sprayer, they supply all the components for that sprayer. So other brands on the market, it's a lot cheaper, but you would buy that knapsack and you might use it for a season.
And it's done.
A season, 2, if you like it, but then it becomes landfill.
Yeah.
Whereas a Jacto, you'll buy it, you'll have all the components, all the parts required. So there's some knapsacks that can last you 10, 20 years. As long as you service them and replace the components, you don't have to change it out.
Okay. So what should push a farmer when you are deciding to buy a manual knapsack sprayer, a motorized one or a tractor-driven one? What should push that decision?
So you need to look at your hectare size. You need to look at your capital involved. You need to look at what you're growing. There's no point having a small household for 3 people and having a 4 kVA generator, or going and getting a 20 kVA generator. So look at the size of your land, look at the product, what is the value of that stuff you're growing, and and then go from there.
Is that sort of advice and support that you offer farmers? I'm going to walk in and I want to buy that tractor-driven sprayer. Are you obligated to just sell that to me, or go, well, what is your application?
So the first thing we'll ask is, what are you using it for? What are you using for a tractor drawn or tractor mounted sprayer? We'll say, what is your horsepower size?
Yeah.
You got to be able to supply the right piece of equipment for the tractor they have. So those are some of the first questions. On the knapsack side, we'll say, what are you spraying? How many knapsacks do you need? A lot of them will come in and say, well, why must I pay for a knapsack that's 5 times the price?
Yeah.
And with that, you're getting the expertise, you're getting the backup, you're getting technical information, you're getting the quality of the components. So it's more of as they come in, if someone says, I need a sprayer, on an educational sort of footing where you now say, give me the crops that you're spraying, give me the speed you're traveling, the pressure that you need to spray at.
Yeah.
There's a lot of components involved.
Is there like a difference between, let's say, spraying in orchard and spraying row crops? Do you have like different knapsack sprayers or mechanized ones
So,
that you use?
talking knapsacks and equipment, some of the biggest farms in the country still use knapsacks. There's no set type of sprayer for a set farm. They might have a self-propelled sprayer for the farm, and they'll go in and spray. But if you can't get into that field, how are you going to spray? You go in with labor and knapsacks and.
So
and spray.
what would potentially vary is maybe the nozzle size.
Correct.
And if let's take a crop that's really high, how do I get that high?
Yes.
Those are the variables that you're now considering.
Exactly. So
Soybeans are only going to get this high,
exactly.
but then you might have bananas you want to spray.
Correct. So, for example, in Chipinge, you've got macadamias, you've got avocados. They will use a towered type of sprayer, which uses a fan and air, and it blows chemical into the trees. You want to displace the air in the trees with chemical-contained air. So you need the force of the air to throw that existing air out to replace it with chemical air. That's on your orchards. Normally on your orchards it's a denser crop, so you need higher volumes, higher wind speed. On your row crops you've now got bigger hectarage. You need wider booms, bigger tanks to cover the areas. So that's a...
And is Lizina, we obviously know, and like you said to us, you're based there at Art Farm. That's a sort of element of a new development in that area, which is very exciting. Are you countrywide?
We're not. We're based out of Harare. We do have distributors that will sell knapsacks in the likes of Chipinge, Chinoi, Chiredzi. But we in one place. It's nice that Art have set up an agri-based setup there, which is a lot of agri companies are getting involved. You've got the trials there, you've got land there to do some demonstrations.
I was going to ask you about those trials. So Art Farm that are doing research to help farmers in whatever decisions those might be. Is there an element in Zimbabwe where Lizino might partner with Art Farm in showcasing a Jacto? That you would give it as a demo to Art Farm to use, and farmers, when they come and go, well, how does this thing operate? Well, come, I'll show you. We're on Art Farm. Is there that kind of arrangement?
Not yet, but I think that is an avenue to expand. They are doing their trials on their top end. They might come and say, Ish, we've got this pest control problem. We need to find out how to apply this chemical properly. Our current methods aren't working. Do you have anything new that will work? Do you have any way of applying it? And can you tell us how we can get better coverage on what we spray?
Yeah. I suppose as well is that as a farmer, a lot of people convince me by showing me.
Yes.
There's a knapsack or whatever that piece of equipment is there in a box or wrapped in plastic. I'm trying to make a decision on whether or not that fits for me, as opposed to, well, before you decide, come, I want to show you how this thing works. And that's just something that happens normally, because Art Farm just use it on a normal day, regardless if it's a crisis on spraying, but it also shows a variation in what that knapsack can be used for, even if you're just spraying ants.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, farming is a practical thing. Farmers are practical people.
Yeah, they're very.
They don't want to see a list of specifications on a sheet and think, okay, I'll buy that. Yeah. They say, well, show me what it can do, show me how you can apply it, show me how it's going to improve my business or improve my bottom line.
So do you ever see farmers moving from the manual knapsack sprayer to the motorized one?
So recently your knapsack range has branched out. You started with your manual knapsack. Disadvantage with the manual knapsack is you can't get high pressures, it's hard work, and you get pressure fluctuations. Motorized knapsack uses fuel, bit more costly, but you can cover ground faster, higher pressure, bigger, more nozzles.
Consistency.
Now you have a battery knapsack, which runs on a lithium-ion battery or lead-acid battery. These now will provide a constant pressure, variable pressure settings, and some even have speed indicator tones. So as you, it makes a tone as you walk. You get a speed calibration, because for calibrating a knapsack sprayer, you have speed, you have pressure, and you have volume. You need those three components in order to spray your chemical, to know how much you're putting down.
Okay, so for someone who's willing to make this kind of investment, there's a cost that is there. What are the things that you might want them to know before they actually make the jump into this investment? Because for someone who's been used to using the manual knapsack sprayer, for them it's cheap, but now you need to convince them of how this one
it's going to benefit
yes.
them. Yes. So, we would say, well, let's look at your project. Has your project grown? If they find they're at a stalemate and they are spraying the same day in, day out on the same stuff, and they're not growing, you can now bring them a battery knapsack or a motorized knapsack and say, right, you're going to spend half your time spraying. You're going to apply your chemical quicker, so it's more efficient, give you time to do other things. You're going to apply that chemical more accurate, and you might even use less chemical based on the product you're using. So now, by using less chemical, you're saving costs. By applying better, you're getting a better result. You're going to increase your value of your product.
Do you ever collaborate with chemical companies?
Not really. There is a bit of a divide where, and there can be a bit of a tit for tat, where the chemical label or the chemical company says, spray at this rate and spray this product with this much water. They don't want to know on what machine you use and how you spray and what nozzle you use. Sometimes they're getting more advanced where they're now saying use a cone nozzle or use a flat fan nozzle. They will come to us and say, right, we need to spray 300 liters a hectare. We'll say you can have this machine that'll do it. You need to spray it at this pressure, you'll get this flow rate. And now you're coming into the aspect where droplet size is important.
Mm-hmm.
So now you'll say, well, what droplet size do you want? They'll say, well, I don't know about droplet size. Because now if you think about it, you have fine droplets and you have heavy droplets. Mm-hmm. If you're spraying a herbicide, you'll want to spray with a heavy droplet, because you don't want that now drifting off with the wind and burning the neighbor's crops. So you'll spray with a heavy droplet onto for a herbicide, because also your herbicide is what's known as a systemic. You need 1 or 2 droplets on a leaf. That plant is going to take in that herbicide and it'll kill the plant. On an insecticide, they normally contact. You want to hit the insects. If 1 or 2 droplets land on the leaf, is it going to hit the insect?
No.
Not necessarily. So you want fine droplets, more droplets, and more chance of hitting the insect. Same with fungicide, more coverage underneath the plant and around the plant. So droplet size is very important.
So that's information that you're probably supplying, because the chemical companies really aren't interested in that.
Yeah, they'll just say, here's your liters per hectare, spray it on with this nozzle. They might say a cone nozzle because they know it needs to be a small droplet.
Okay.
But then you've got to go to a farmer and say, well, when are you spraying? If they're spraying in the middle of the day and they're using a fine droplet, that droplet can evaporate.
Yes.
And now they say, hey, they'll come and say, the chemical guy told me to spray this, you've told me to spray like this, but it hasn't worked. Mm-hmm. So the chemical guys can point fingers at us and say, oh, the equipment was not correct. We can say, well, the chemical's probably not doing the job. So it is a very niche area where you got to say, tell me when you're spraying, is there wind? Is it hot? Spray early mornings, late evenings. Or if you're forced to spray in the day, use a bigger droplet, less likely to evaporate. So there's lots of variables in it.
Okay. Can you tell us about specialized crop spraying and which ones you should apply when you're spraying an orchard versus when you're spraying your row crops?
So we've touched on it a little bit now with the nozzle size. Your orchards are high volume sprays. High volume sprays because you need to cover that tree and you need to penetrate that tree. You've got to get in there to to hit the bugs or cover the tree. A lot of guys want the tree dripping. On row cropping, you just want to cover as much ground as possible, as quickly as possible, but you still need to get the chemical on. So specialized equipment, I would say the row croppers will use mounted sprayers, trailed sprayers, and then they'll use self-propelled sprayers. A self-propelled sprayer is a tractor and a sprayer in one. It can run up to speeds of 20 kilometers an hour, whereas your tractor mounted and trailed sprayers are 8 kilometers an hour, and your knapsack is 3 to 4 kilometers an hour. So,
And that depending, like you said, if you've got big hectarage,
Yes.
knapsack's going to take you ages.
exactly.
Yeah.
The bigger hectarage, the higher the value of the equipment, the higher the value of the crop, the faster you need to do it.
Support for this kind of equipment, Lazino, you got a good backup for all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, all companies are going to say they've got good backup. We like to think we are well backed up and well stocked up on spares. Look, you're going to come across niche stuff which you're not going to have. We do have South Africa on our doorstep. Jacto is a prominent, is well presented there, and there's lots of guys there, so we can always get stuff up quickly from there. But again, yeah, we've been around for 10 plus years, so we tend to stock most of the parts that are required for some of this equipment.
Adma, you going to do that this year?
Yeah, we are. It's now a lot easier because we can just drive our stuff
the road.
across, and it's a great event. It's agricultural based. All the farmers like to come because they know that they're going to see agricultural equipment, agricultural practices, agricultural companies. They're not going there and they're not, closed shops and things like that. It's isolated agriculture. Adma, I have spoken about doing demonstrations, and we did last year. At a different time, we did some demonstrations and got some farmers there. It wasn't as well supported. There is talk of possibly extending the show dates where you have one day where you have your demonstration so farmers can actually see some of the equipment working. Again, it goes back to farmers being practical guys and wanting to see what it can do. Alternatively, there's talk of having a different day in the calendar, which is the ADMAR demonstration day.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's a good event, and yeah.
Anything new from Lazino that you might be showcasing?
We have got a couple of
You're
new
keeping that under your
pieces of kit.
keeping it under your beard, Rory.
Yes, there is something. I'll touch on the one thing. There's something called a gang tiller.
Okay.
It was used very widely in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And it doesn't involve having to move your pivot in order to water. It doesn't involve having to spray chemicals. It's a mechanical tool that can solve a lot of issues. And a lot of the older farmers have got wind of it and are very keen on it. So it will be on our stand. You're welcome to come
Is
and
it
have
something that sort of went away? They didn't
Definitely.
find, and now it's coming back.
If you go to farms, you'll see them on scrap heaps and
Yeah.
things like that. But yeah, it's something that we like to do a few of the niche things that are not, not mainframe. And this is one. And another new thing we are coming up with is a trailed tobacco ridger. So you've obviously got your single row tobacco ridger, you get your double row tobacco ridger. We're now coming up with a trailed ridger. It's obviously, you want more capacity, you want faster turnaround time, you want less downtime. We're trying to, for us, a wealthy and efficient farmer is good for us, So
I suppose as well, that's a blend of, we spoke with Hugo about being very careful in trying to be very modern and going away from 101.
Yes.
You've ticked the box there twice, because the gang tiller was a very simple, basic piece of equipment used in the 60s that did the job.
Yes.
It's potentially maybe coming back.
Yeah.
And now a way of modernizing ridging that can make farmers more efficient. Did you know that you were like ticking both boxes?
not on purpose.
Till I told you.
But hey, like Hugo said, a lot of the old practices that guys are seeing all this new stuff are not necessarily as efficient. For example, the gang till is used when you get capping on sandy soils, right? You've planted and now you have a capping from your first rains. Now what happens? That plant can't break through that cap.
Yes.
So what farmers have to do, they have to throw their pivot across and put 5 mils of water
To
down
break it.
to break it, or to wet it so then it can break
Yeah.
through. Or what they did back in the day is they ran a gang tiller through, broke that crust, and then the plant could come through. And that's a 75 or 50 horsepower tractor. No
As
fuel.
fast as it can run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No towing the pivot, and you can cover all your hectarage in a day.
Mm.
So, yeah, so it's nice to know that the old kit still has a place. But, yeah, we need to, with the rising costs of the war, the fuel price, we need to also make farmers more efficient.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what we work towards.
So, sorry to bring you back a little bit.
No worries.
Do you offer services for knapsack sprayers, mechanized sprayers? Do you offer services? Let's say maybe I want a part replaced. Do you offer that kind of service?
Yes, yeah. So we will. We can do the servicing on your knapsack. You can bring it in, and we'll service it. We can sell you the components, and we can even tell you how to do it. We do offer. We do get some of the specialists from Brazil coming out and doing nozzle training courses and equipment training courses as well.
Okay. So Zimbabwe has tough conditions. Like we have heat, we have dust, we have hard water. What types of sprayers which we have become more reliable in those hard conditions, which you can say, you know what, given that you stay in this province, if you use this one, this will definitely work for you?
So I think you're talking on every farm in the world with the dust, the heat, the
Hard water.
the hard water. It's something that goes into a lot of R&D on the equipment companies. So it's not isolated to Zimbabwe. What they do is they've developed stronger chassis for the bad terrain on the farms. They've developed the hard water. Look, we haven't really touched on nozzle wear. You get plastic nozzles, you get ceramic nozzles, you get flat fan nozzles, you get cone nozzles. And within those parameters, there's a whole lot of range of other nozzles. You could choose between 40 different nozzles if you wanted. We get a lot of farmers come in and say, okay, please can I have a nozzle? I need to spray. Can I have a nozzle? That's like saying, walking into a car shop and saying, can I have a car? You know, how are you going to use it? Where are you going to use it? And how can we save you money? So, hardness of water will increase nozzle wear. Your machine's dusty conditions, heat, that's going to cause evaporation with your smaller droplets. All your bearings have improved over the years. All your equipment has improved over the years. Maybe more regular service intervals. Looking after your equipment, the biggest mistake that guys do is once they've sprayed, end of the day comes what you want to do. You want to put that sprayer down, you want to park that tractor.
You're not cleaning.
You leave that chemical in the tank or in the pipes. What's going to happen there is that chemical is going to eat the pipes. It's going to sit in there. It's going to close all the piping areas. It's going to clog up your pump. Cleaning your sprayer is one of the most important things you can do. Either when you're changing your chemical or when you are done for the day. Some of the equipment actually has cleaning facilities on them. So for example, you finish spraying, you've got your chemical tank and you've got a freshwater tank. You'll fill both up when you start spraying. Now your chemical tanks has got your mixed chemical in. You'll do your spraying. Once your spraying is finished and now you want to head home, you now turn a valve on the sprayer. It throws that fresh water into the main tank, recirculates it, and then you spray that fresh water out. So you'll just have to hop off the tractor, change your valve, and then it's done. On the bigger, newer sprayers, that's all done automatically. You press a button and it flushes them out. But for knapsack sprayers, we find knapsack comes in, it's still sitting with chemical in there.
Yeah.
Your seals get worn faster, quicker. Yeah, I mean, you touch chemical, you can't handle chemical. You've got to wear gloves, you've got to wear masks. You can't leave it in the equipment.
So can you say cleaning your equipment will actually increase the lifespan of the equipment?
Correct. Yeah, it's one of the most important things.
Okay, so what is one of the common mistakes farmers make when using the equipment, or even if it comes to caring for the equipment?
Look, they'll use it for the incorrect purpose. So they'll say, what are the prices of your pieces of equipment? And they'll buy a knapsack because it's a cheaper version of what they need, because they can't afford it what it's supposed to be for, they use it what they can afford. But that's like taking your car to monopools. You know, it'll do the job. It won't do a great job, and it'll be damaged once you get there, or once you finish doing what you're doing.
Okay. So what PPE should be used when spraying, and something you supply alongside the equipment?
Yes. So first of all, look at the label. All the chemical companies, all the chemical products have a label on them. You look at that label, you read that label, and it will tell you. Gloves. You'll have a triangle, and I'm sure you've seen it on any chemical labels. You've got a triangle: green, yellow,
Red.
orange,
Purple's the worst.
purple. Yes. Obviously, they're phasing out all the purple labeled stuff, but common is green. Orange is not a great one. And it'll say there, use gloves, mix at this ratio, use a mask, use an apron. So, yeah, we do sell. We sell a kit that has a top with longs. We don't sell the gumboots. Gloves, a mask, a face guard, a cap, and an apron. Yeah, you don't.
But maybe you could have worn that today.
I could have.
You're really Lizino committed.
Is there anything else you might want to add, Joe?
Yeah, the last thing I want to say, nozzles are very important. I know we've touched on droplet size and stuff, but they did some research in Brazil on a 1,000-hectare farm, which is a big farm here, which is a pretty small farm in Brazil. They said on a 1,000-hectare farm, your chemical bill is $400,000 in Brazil. Yeah. So you're spending $400,000 on chemicals, and now if you don't put them through your sprayer correctly, you're throwing money away.
Yeah.
Yes.
So $400,000 on chemicals. On a standard 24-meter boom, you have 50 nozzles. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So each nozzle is putting through $8,000 worth of chemical. One nozzle in a season. That's putting through $8,000 worth of chemical. Guys will say, but the nozzles are expensive. Okay, so each nozzle is doing $8,000 worth of chemical through that nozzle. They did some research, and they found on most of the machines you had probably 14% of the nozzles on that machine were worn. So say that's 10 nozzles.
Yeah.
Okay. When a nozzle is worn, how do you know it's worn? A brand new nozzle at a certain pressure should give you a certain flow rate. If that flow rate, say 50 psi, should do a liter a minute. If that flow rate is out by 10%, they say you must change your nozzles. Okay, so if it's doing 1.1 liters a minute instead of 1 liter a minute, you need to change your nozzles.
Yeah.
So so they did this research. 400 grand, 8 grand a nozzle. If you had 14% of the nozzles on your machine not working, say 7 nozzles, right? 10% of that value, it works out to be around 5 grand. You are, I think it worked out to be about a grand. 10% of what that nozzle is spraying gives you about a grand that you're losing.
Yeah.
With
If not
10%.
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
And one nozzle is worth $8. So you can buy 700 nozzles for the money that you've lost by not replacing those 7 nozzles. So guys say, no, I don't want to change those nozzles. Well, it's cost you $700, and you could have bought
for $8.
Yeah.
For $8.
And that's one of the most expensive
But
nozzles.
is that not going back to us saying about educating farmers?
Yeah, it's.
Because they're practical. Like I
Yes.
can see the sprayers working.
I can see a spray.
Yeah, correct. So why
Is
should I
it
change
correct? Yeah. Another thing I want to touch on. Sorry, last one. I know we are running on a bit, but when a guy sprays, you say to him, "Okay, you sprayed. How do you know you've covered your crop successfully?" "I know, it looked good. It sprayed. I could see some droplets on the leaves." "But how do you know?" The only way they're going to know is if they see the crop starts dying after a week, or the weeds start showing and the chemical hasn't worked on the weeds. There's something called litmus paper or water-sensitive paper. We sell it. It's quite an expensive product, but it's cardboard-based paper which you can put on the leaves of your crops. So as you spray, it'll show you the coverage you get.
And that's just random placement.
You want to put it randomly so your driver or your operator doesn't know where it's been put, because all of a sudden he starts spraying.
Yeah.
So you put it there as he goes past, and you now check. Right, what is my coverage? It'll show you. It'll have all the little droplets on there, and it'll show you how much you've covered.
Wow.
And that's an important thing that every farmer should have, but probably 5% of farmers will use it.
Yeah.
I think it all comes down to knowing about the litmus paper.
Yes.
If you're not well educated, there's no way you'll buy something you don't know about.
No, exactly. And calibration is important.
Exactly. Well, it is clear that spraying is as much important as everything else when it comes to farming, because whether you like it or not, you need to know what is best for you when you are a farmer, because that one decision might determine whether you are profitable when you're doing your farming or you face a loss. Thank you so much, Rory,
you, Tanya.
for coming today to the studio.
Nice
Thank you
to
for
meet
your
you.
time.
Thanks, Dirk.
Yes, thank you.